and go back to work. Our nation was horrified, but it's not going to be terrorized.
Joining us now at the New York Stock Exchange is Richard Grasso, the chairman and CEO of that exchange. And at our New York bureau, Suze Orman. Suze is the personal finance expert and best-selling author. Richard, Paul O'Neill, the Treasury Secretary, is going to be there tomorrow. Mayor Giuliani, Governor Pataki for the reopening at 9:30 Eastern. Do you expect things to run smoothly?
Larry, good to be with you. And yes, indeed, it will be a 9:30 opening to be commemorated by the ringing of the bell from a New York City fireman, a New York City police officer, a Port Authority police officer, and an emergency medical services officer. And yes, indeed, we are ready. We have rebuilt the infrastructure to the point where I'm confident that 85 million Americans can be back in the greatest market in the world.
And do you expect it, Richard, to be a bad day?
Well, Larry, I think the message we have sent over these last 4 days, starting with the brilliant leadership of our president, is that America is strong, our economy is the envy of the rest of the world. This is a challenge, but it's a short-term challenge. History has proven, if you are a patient investor, if you believe in America as we all do, you will be amply rewarded by investments in the market.
Are you going to have a moment of silence, by the way, tomorrow for the dead?
Well, actually, Larry, what we're going to do, as you know, we normally ring the bell and start trading at 9:30. Tomorrow we will ring the bell and be silent for 2 minutes until 9:32. And at 9:32, a U.S. Marine Corps Major, Roseanne Scrignoli, will lead this community in the singing of God Bless America, to then be followed by those 4 brave representatives of the greatest policing and fire agencies in the world, and then we will be back to business.
You hold on, Richard. We have another question or two for you. Suze, what should people do tomorrow?
Well,
Investors, what should they do?
I think they should be patient and just watch, and I think they should go into it with a lot of hope, Larry, and that the markets may open up down, but I have to tell you, over the long run, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I saw the markets end up tomorrow up. But people don't invest just for one day, they invest for the long run, so be very careful here. Tomorrow, the markets are not made forever.
Warren Buffett said if it goes down, he'll buy.
Well, you know, that's not a bad idea, but where are you buying? What are you doing? Those people out there that have mutual funds should be just a little careful. They should remember, even if they placed an order to sell at 9 o'clock, they get the closing day price that day. So I would just sit back and wait. Doesn't matter if you place an order at 9:30, at 10:30, at 11:30. The truth is, even if you waited till 12, you'd get the same price. But be careful here, because I think in the long run, 1 year from now, we will be better off than we would have been if this never had happened.
All right, I'll ask this of both of you. Richard, patriotically, should we hold on to what we've got?
Larry, this is the strongest country on the face of the earth. Our economy has slowed, but it was slowing prior to the terrible, heinous crime committed against all Americans last Tuesday. What we know is that we will lead the world in the economy of the 21st century. This economy is indeed going to be different going forward, but it's going to be strong, and patient investors, as Suze said, have historically been time and again well rewarded. So be patient, be prudent, don't invest for Monday, invest to meet your needs.
Suze, patriotically, can you do something patriotic with your investment tomorrow?
Well, I have to tell you, I think we should all hope that this market goes up. And as a patriotic thing, don't sell. Obviously, if you have stocks that are somehow subjected to some downward move because of what just happened, whether they're the airlines and insurance, maybe. But for most of you out there, you have good quality stocks. If you should have owned them before this happened, please stay in them now and stick with this, because in the long run, again, I do believe we will be just fine.
Because fear motivates people a lot, doesn't it, Suze?
Fear motivates people a lot, but you know what's so funny, Larry, is that fear and hope were the two emotions that kept people, before this ever happened, in the market and in stocks when maybe they shouldn't have sold. They had a stock at 25, it went to 50, and they were afraid to sell it because they were afraid it might go to 75 or 80. Hope that they bought it at 75 and it went to 50, and they were hoping for it to go back to 75. Emotions rule what happens in the markets.
Let's get a call in for Richard Grasso and Susie Orman. Wichita, hello.
Hello, Larry.
Hi.
As a long-term economic solution to this problem, I propose that just as Kennedy said that we're going to put a man on the moon by such and such a date, we get our country to say, hey, by such and such a date, we're going to be energy independent from the rest of the world. We have all the technologies to do it. We have all the ability to do it. We just need to put forth the resolve and do it so that we're not dependent on the Arab nations for our oil, etc.
What do you make of that, Susie?
Well, you know, that would be great, but the reality of things is that we are dependent. This is where we are today, and the stock market is made up of more than just energy stocks. They are made up of all kinds of stocks, and they're made up of really your future, everybody out there. We can take our future into our own hands if you just invest today with a rational eye rather than an emotional one. Please just watch carefully tomorrow. You don't necessarily have to be a participant by buying or selling. Just watch and send your good wishes for this market for the next few days.
One more call for Richard and Susie. Dallas, hello.
Hi, Larry. Hi, Susie. I want to ask you quickly about the plunge protection theme where the federal government might bail out the stock market. Where is the accountability in America? Should the federal government be doing this?
Well, let's ask Richard that first. Richard, do you think so?
Well, Larry, these markets are the freest and most open on earth, and the federal government's role is not to stabilize by buying securities. The federal government's role, as the Federal Reserve has indeed done, is inject liquidity into the market system. I'm very confident, Larry, having stood in this very spot in 1987 and watched a very precipitous decline. The market declines in the late 60s, the 70s. Again, to Susie's point, patience, buy quality, don't be irrational in liquidating in periods of challenge. Our nation has never been stronger. This economy is going to recover to the point where we'll look back with great pride.
Susie, you optimistic too?
I have to tell you, a few months ago, I was less optimistic than I am today. I think the infusion of capital, yes, into the economy, by the feds, by even the corporations, Larry. I have to tell you, the corporations...
Go ahead, quickly.
The corporations have opened up their hands to start money flowing again, even if it's to save what's just happened. I think, again, I'm more optimistic than I was a few months ago.
Susie Orman, the personal finance expert and best-selling author, and the very up Richard Grasso, the chairman and CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. The whole world will be watching you tomorrow morning, Richard. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Larry. Tune in.
Joining us now from Washington, one of my favorite journalists ever, the assistant managing editor of the Washington Post, the Pulitzer Prize winner and best-selling author Bob Woodward. How's the president done so far in this tragedy?
I think exceptionally well. He really has hit his stride, and he is out there talking about it, and has this team of Cheney and Powell and Rumsfeld and lots of people with a great deal of experience and a sense that you don't solve problems like this in a day or a week, and they've all set the timeline way out and are talking about years of work, and I think that's quite wise.
You wrote The Commanders, all about the Gulf War. It was a heck of a book, and Powell and Cheney were two leading figures in that book. Do you have confidence in them in this area? A different kind of war.
And I think they realize that as much as anyone. What's interesting about Cheney is, if you saw any of his interview today, he has this way of almost mainlining confidence out to people. Yeah. He is a rock. During the Gulf War, he didn't make the detailed military decisions, but he literally made sure he knew all the details, knew the people who were making the decisions, and had the generals and admirals come up and give him a course in war planning that went on he took 18 hours of lessons in this, and at the end gave him a certificate. So no detail will escape him, I suspect.
And then Powell?
Somebody who is notoriously cautious. He was called, and I called him in my book on the Gulf War, the reluctant warrior. He has pleaded guilty to that, saying the general's job is to protect the troops, so I presume he will move very slowly on this. He doesn't like to do anything or say anything unless he's pretty assured of success.
Bob, you, of course, are a strong defender of the First Amendment and do that in your writing and in your paper's brilliant coverage of many events. What do we do here with the public's right to know versus national security concerns? What do you do if you get some information and the government calls you up and says, don't print it?
Well, I think people in this case, when there is a live war going on, I think people are going to be very careful. I was interested, I think the most important thing that happened this weekend was when Cheney came out today and said, we don't know, but it's possible that there are other terrorist incidents in the works. And Cheney, who's somebody not inclined to speculate, actually stepped forward and said maybe there were other teams on Tuesday who got cold feet and didn't board their planes or were thwarted somehow. If you look at what Rumsfeld said, the Secretary of Defense, 4 times in one interview today said terrorists can strike anywhere at any time with a technique or method of their choosing and not necessarily with airplanes. So I think people ought to be vigilant and on their toes now, because I think that's what Cheney and Rumsfeld are telling us.
Would one of those aspects of vigilance be don't fly on a commercial aircraft?
And no, that people have to make those decisions. It's just to watch where you're going, know the environment we live in, not take action.
You mean we got to go out of our houses and look left and right?
Yeah, and you know, you need, if there's something suspicious going on, call people. My voicemail was filled with leads today and over the weekend, and I've tried to check them, and there are people out there who were on their toes.
Are you worried, Bob?
I think it would only be prudent to worry. You have to look at this as a war, as everyone has said, and it necessitates getting into the head of the other side. Whoever did this just isn't angry at America. They obviously hate America, and they are trying to destabilize this country, certainly disfigure it. And it would be logical for them to do something else. It's not that they have just launched this one operation and are likely going to say, okay, now we'll let America come at us.
Bob, it's always great seeing you, having you with us.
Thank
Great
you.
journalist, thanks. Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. Tomorrow night, don't forget, among the guests, President Mubarak of Egypt. Aaron Brown will have the Aaron Brown special report following this program, and leading into Mr. Brown, we're going to offer you some sights and sounds. Watch.